I outlined the exact plan to help you gain your next 10 pounds of muscle. I recently had a client who came to me whose goal was to add 10 pounds of lean muscle to their frame. So I outlined this exact outline and I figured I'd share it with you guys because this is the protocol that it would take for you to gain your next 10 pounds of muscle. So first things first, we have to be realistic with our timeline. Now, what does that mean? The timeline of how long this is going to take and what it's going to require. So in order to gain your next 10 pounds of muscle, you're looking at netting an average of 1 to 2 pounds per month. That's right, not per week, per month. And we're talking lean actual muscle tissue, not just weight on the scale, okay? So what kind of a timeline are we looking at? Well, it's not going to take us 5 weeks to do this. It's going to take us anywhere between 7 to 12 months. That's right, 7 to 12 months. So as you can see, before we even get started with this, patience is going to be required. All right, so we have to outline that first. The next thing we have to look at, and the biggest piece that we need to look at here, is your nutrition. 80% of your results are going to come from what you eat. So the nutrition component to gaining more muscle is extremely important. So first things first, we need to make sure that we're having sufficient raw ingredients available to our bodies in order to put muscle tissue on. But we also want to do this in a lean environment. We don't want to get over bulky and then have to diet away all this hard-earned muscle that we gained. So we need to look at, first and foremost, being in a calorie surplus. In order to put muscle on, you need to be above maintenance calories to do that. Now, you need enough calories where you're above maintenance in order to tell your body, like, hey, you need to lay down raw muscle here. So a lean surplus is about 10% is perfect. So that would mean if your maintenance calories is 3,000, 10% surplus would put us at 300 calorie surplus a day, which would equal 3,300 calories a day in order to gain lean muscle mass. So you just need to find out your maintenance and then just get 10% of that. And that's enough calories for you to stimulate muscle growth and put on lean muscle tissue. All right. Next thing, we got to look at your protein intake because protein is going to be vital for putting on muscle. So we're talking about 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 180 pounds, 180 grams of protein per day. It's a good starting rule. Some people do need a little bit more. Some people do need a little bit less. But the point being is you have to make sure you're getting an adequate amount. And 1 gram per pound of body weight is enough just to check that box, so to say. All right. The next thing that we got to look at when it comes to nutrition is we want to make sure we space out our protein 3 to 5 hours and throughout the day. So you're going to be balancing protein-rich meals every 3 to 5 hours. Again, just to ensure that we're constantly giving our bodies the building blocks it needs to put on muscle and help us to recover. All right. Next thing, you got to make sure that you're eating whole foods. Try to stay away from processed foods, as whole foods are better for your overall health. And just in general, it's just better for you, point blank. Okay. And I want to give you a little caveat here. Don't rush this process. You can gain in a small surplus, but it just takes time. As I outlined before, this is going to take you 7 to 12 months to do. It's not going to happen overnight. All right, let's shift into training because that's the next big building block here. So the goal of the training is to create enough stress to force muscle tissue on. And how do we do this? First things first, with adequate amount of volume. So volume, we need at least 6 to 10 sets per muscle group per week in order to stimulate enough muscle tissue, okay? That's a bare minimum. Again, I don't know anything about your training or where you're at in your training, but that's a good starting point for you to start at. Next thing we got to look at is the load, okay? 5 to 20 reps at 0 to 1 rep in the tank is perfect, meaning you're taking all your sets pretty close to failure where you can't get another rep or maybe one more rep left, okay? The one more thing that I want to go back and touch upon about with volume, I want you to put a little bit more volume toward those weaker areas of your physique. So if you want to bring up your arms, so to say, you're going to give a little more volume to that. Whereas if your weaker body, your stronger body parts, if let's say your legs grow really quickly, you're going to pull some of that volume from your legs and put that volume toward your arms. Okay, so you're going to kind of adequate that. So this way you have a nice balanced physique. All right. Next thing, I really don't want you to force progression. Most people will tell you just got to keep beating the logbook, beat the logbook. But the problem with that is when you force progression, you are at risk for injuries because you're just trying to beat the logbook. And I don't think that's smart either. You want to avoid being injured because if you're injured, you can't train. If you can't train, you're not going to put on any muscle. So Instead, focus on keeping constant tension on that muscle. Pick exercises that put a lot of tension on the targeted muscle you're training, because that tension equals stress. And when your body senses that stress, it has to go and repair that area. Hence, you're going to build more muscle in those areas. Okay. Next thing, cardio. Yes, a word that's not equated with bulking, but you got to have some cardio in there, again, to keep the gains lean, and just overall, it's good for your heart and respiratory system and whatnot. The way I do it, I recommend at least 10,000 steps a day. And however you want to do that, if you want to do 20 minutes of cardio here or this or that, doesn't matter to me. As long as you hit 10,000 steps a day, it's a good way to get in enough cardio where you're not overdoing it, but also keeping everything, the fat gains at bay, and just overall staying healthy. All right. The last component, and this component is probably the most important. I probably should have put it a little higher up, but recovery. Okay. Recovery is important. You don't grow in the gym. You grow outside of the gym. So we have to look at our sleep quality. Sleep quality has to be on point. 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night is ideal for maximum muscle growth. Now, for me, the thing that helps me the most is blackout shades. Blackout shades completely darken the room. As soon as any sunlight or light comes through my windows, I'm awake. So by having dark blackout shades, it eliminates that for me, and I can wake up whenever I feel rested. So keep that in mind. Good sleep, and practice good sleep, hygiene and a routine and whatnot. Whatever works for you in that case, I don't care. As long as you're sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night, you're going to be able to recover and build more muscle. All right. And the last component is water. Water is very important for muscle growth because your body's primarily made of water. And with the carbohydrates you eat, your body stores those carbohydrates in the muscles with water. So water is extremely important for muscle growth. Make sure you're getting at least a gallon of water a day. That's just enough to make sure that we're hitting all bases here. And if you need help with your training and not sure what type of training program to do, I got you covered. All you got to do is click that link in the description below, and you'll get our free 6-week training program, no strings attached. I just want to help you to avoid all the mistakes that I made along my 20-year journey and just help you to put on your next 10 pounds of muscle. All right. This was Anthony, AB Fitness. I'll catch you guys on the next one.